Today, we are going to be talking about War for the Planet of the Apes, and in our Tube Talk segment, we are going to be talking about Game of Thrones, Riverdale, and the Emmy nomination. So stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. And today with me, everybody, I have Joel, Bad Ape Cunningham. And who am I today, Joel?
I don't know. I'm not a bad ape. I'm just like I'm all offended. I'm not a bad ape. I'm here with Matt. I did not start this war. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, I didn't. Koba did.
But I will finish it. Koba did, yes.
Koba did.
He did start that war.
Yeah, Koba.
Which we're going to be talking about a little bit later.
Yep.
Right, in our review of this film.
Speaking of Lazy Ape Studios.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyways, so greetings. Hey, welcome to the show. If you are new to this, we here at The Real Review, we actually put on a fun little show where you get some of, I guess, the perspectives of each end of the spectrum when it comes to watching a movie. You have the critic side where Joel's a little bit more critical, maybe a little bit more negative. You can really hone in on something, really pick it apart or shred it to pieces. And then on the other side, you have Matt, which is me. And I can tend to be maybe over emotional, maybe a little bit over excitable about things, and tend to overlook things that maybe I shouldn't overlook. I don't know.
Maybe.
Something like that.
I love you anyway.
Anyway, so what we do is we put those together and kind of give you a real review of sorts. So you kind of have a little bit of both worlds there. But yeah, Joel.
Yes.
Why don't you tell the lovely people how they can get connected with us?
Yeah, so we got some great ways for all of you listeners out there to get connected to the podcast. One awesome way to do so is by checking us out on Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. We've got the other socials as well. We've got the Twitter and the Instagram, which are both at Real Review Media. And then you can also drop us an email. We would love to hear from you, as we always love hearing from our listeners. And you can reach us at realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Yes.
Hey,
well done, Joel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready to talk about this, but quickly,
yes.
I wanted to mention something amazing happened this week for me.
What?
I, as you know, I'm a fan of the LaCroix.
Yep.
I, for the longest time, have been buying these 8-packs at Walmart because I thought that was the standard of what they came into. And I walked into a Safeway the other day, and it was magical. They have 12 packs.
Hey.
I was like, oh.
I've seen
it's amazing.
Seen like 20-something pack, like pallets. Yeah.
Oh, man. I would invest some money into that.
You know what, Joel? If there was a movie about LaCroix, I would cast you immediately to play the lead role as the person buying the LaCroix.
Is that the whole job?
That's the whole movie.
I could do that.
Yeah.
As long as I didn't replace it with like stunt LaCroix.
Yeah,
it's like prop
true.
LaCroix.
It's true.
It would probably taste really awful then.
Yeah, it would be bad. So let's get into this thing, because last time we spoke, Jolie,
yes.
You hadn't seen any of the previous Apes movies.
I'm just going to say time out on the Jolie, though.
Okay.
Just kidding.
You haven't seen any of them, and you did some homework, and you caught up.
Yeah, so this was an ape-ventful weekend.
Ape-ventful?
I don't know if there's a way to
Was
put
it
that.
the ape-pocalypse?
It was. It wasn't, not for me, at least. It was a full of ape weekend. We went a little bit ape. How about that?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop with the puns.
Yep.
I had to catch up on the second film in the series.
Oh, you saw Rise? Then.
Yeah, I saw Rise,
okay,
but
gotcha.
I never saw Dawn. I never got a chance to see Dawn. Heard some good things, but never got a chance to check it out. Matt Reeves.
He took over then, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was excited to kind of check that out and see how he handled it. So I went and I watched it and really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I was pleasantly surprised, I think. We'll talk about, obviously, the next film in just a bit. But I liked it a lot more than the first film.
Yeah.
I should say, I mean, not like, for me, a lot more is like a letter grade or so, maybe more. I think the second film I gave a pretty solid like B kind of range to B plus. That one I would definitely give more of like an A-ish range.
Cool.
For the second one. I really enjoyed it. I thought cinematography was great. Special effects were great. The story was, I think, simultaneously like really suspenseful and interesting because there was this tension that was obviously there between the humans and the apes, and you never knew who was going to do what and going to kill somebody or not kill somebody. And I think it told a really cool story of my expectation, which I think they handled this a little bit differently with this third one with war, but with that second one was they're going to show the humans constantly as being like this really bad force and really negative. And it kind of went down that route, but then it really went in a different direction and showed that like in the second film, there's good and there's bad on both sides.
Yeah.
The whole war in a sense is started by the bad ape.
Yeah.
Kubo. Kubo, Kobo,
Koba.
Kuja, Koba.
Kuja.
Just throw out names here. Yeah. By
Koba and the two strings.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. But he took that on as sort of his own, like he wanted to basically destroy humans and because of darkness. And yeah, you could say that humans had definitely done something bad to him in the past, but it also showed that the other apes had also had bad things happen to him, but had overcome that darkness and that bad stuff. And so I thought it was just it was compelling. It showed both sides. There was loss on both sides. There was, gain and loss. And so it was just interesting. It was very neat for me, and I really enjoyed it. So coming into this third film, I had some pretty good expectations, same director, same writing team, I'm pretty sure. So it was really like high hopes for it. And I think we'll talk a lot about it, but I think I was happy with it.
Yeah.
There were some aspects that I overall felt didn't live up to the second film for me, and were kind of a step back story-wise.
Sure.
But a lot of really good things as well.
Yeah.
And for the most part, enjoyed it. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I did as well. And just to kind of give you a synopsis, if you haven't seen any of these, War for the Planet of the Apes is the third in the trilogy. Mm-hmm. The synopsis is, after the apes suffer unimaginable losses, Caesar wrestles with his darker instincts and begins his own mythic quest to avenge his kind.
Yes.
Andy Serkis is leading the helm as Caesar. Then you have Woody Harrelson, Steve Zahn, Karen Konoval, Maya Miller, among others. And I really liked it. And I think just start off with the good, I guess. To compare it to the others, let me just say this. I like this one better than the second one.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I'll tell you why in a little bit.
Okay.
There are things that I didn't like in this one, though, too. So,
yeah.
And I think a lot of it's just going to come down to story preference and what you like and what I like as a person. It's definitely, this part is definitely very subjective, and that's probably why I like the third one. But let's start off with what's good. Looks fantastic. There were so many times where I would just lean forward and stare at the screen because I was like, that's a real monkey.
I know, yeah.
And I was like, that is a real monkey, and it's acting. And obviously we know that it's not, but the just in awe of what we can do with visual effects is incredible. A lot of times when you're trying to hide stuff in the visual effects realm, you'll do a wide shot or something super far away so we can't see the flaws.
Yeah.
There were a lot of in-your-face close-ups.
Yeah, this movie at times was almost throwing it in your face, like, look how good our special effects are. There was, a couple of times where they would do slow kind of pan, like zoom ins almost to the monkey's eyes, like one of their eyes, and you're just looking at it, and I'm seeing the individual, red blood vessels of the eye of the ape, and I'm just like, wow, and then there's other parts I would just. Because there's not only is there a mannerism thing and the way that just an object moves in the environment that sometimes looks fake, but then there's just simplistic kind of lighting, the way that the lighting will kind of bounce off an object, which is always a struggle to make that look as natural as possible. But there would be times where I would look at just the fur on the back of one of the apes, and you would see one hair that's just obviously a little longer, or just things that I make that sound really lame, but just little things that really made it feel like this is a real tangible ape that I'm looking at on the screen. It was super impressive to me. Yeah, and I think in that regard, probably even better than the second film, and I would
over time it's definitely gotten better.
And I would say probably hands down one of the best visual portrayals of something like that that I've seen ever.
Yeah,
so
it's like we've conquered monkeys. Now if we can get the humans down.
Yeah, I mean
we got to get Tarkin looking a little better, and Leia for sure. But no, absolutely looked great. Another thing I did really like. I still really like the cinematography in this. I thought it was really, really cool, especially at the beginning. There's an opening sequence in the jungle where it's just kind of panning forward, and there's this captions going on, and then these people come walking in, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, there was some really cool visual cinematography style to a lot of the shots as well. It didn't really feel like they were trying to just present things as action-packed and
Right.
as like right in your face as possible. There's
Right.
definitely good action moments, but there was a lot of wide, there was a lot of big kind of panning and effective use, I felt like, at times of slow-mo. That got a little heavy-handed to me
Yeah.
at other times, but there was definitely there, and I did enjoy it. I did
Yeah.
enjoy the way that the whole cinematography kind of came together and gave a really strong feeling.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing I could say about the film as well, is that it elicited and emitted a really strong feeling.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And I think another thing is too is all the performances were really great. I thought Woody Harrelson was actually fantastic. He wasn't like over the top like I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
He had maybe one line where I was like, it doesn't fit as well, but that was really it. And it's in the trailer where he's like, why so emotional or whatever. I was like, that's a little out of place, but
that's where we can break into in a bit. That'll be more of like my negatives when it comes down to more the story elements.
Right.
And some of it wasn't really the character's fault because I felt like there were certain aspects to characterization in this film that didn't fit the same way that it did in the first film.
Yeah. I don't know what they have to do with like,
or the second film, I should say, not the first.
Like Oscars and stuff like that, because
Yeah.
Andy Serkis
Yeah.
is really good. Like,
yeah.
like I know it's a monkey, but like he's wearing the dots, he's doing the facial expressions, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what category he would fit into exactly, but
he's like he's cornered the market
yeah.
on that type of work, you
Right.
know, Gollum, and then every other monkey movie after
like if they presented an award for that type of role, it's like he would win every year, though.
Motion
it's
capture,
like,
yeah. He's like here to collect his 12th Academy Award.
Exactly. It's like they can't really do that right now. They need a few more contenders in there. And we've seen good, motion capture portrayals done in the past with other people. I mean, the whole Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy is a good example.
Well, yeah,
which
that's
isn't really a motion
that's
capture
James
thing
Gunn's
necessarily.
cousin or brother. His brother did the stand-in for it. Like,
Yeah.
he's not doing the voice. That's obviously Bradley Cooper, but he did the stand-in for it. During the show. Also, what was the other? Oh, the Hobbit movies. Benedict Cumberbatch. There's a funny video.
Yeah, Smaug.
Funny video where he's going around like crawling on the ground doing the.
That is one of the funniest things. Yeah, when you've seen him, he's like, rah, rah, rah. Yeah. So.
Anyways, so I thought Andy Serkis was really cool. I thought he's just really good at that sort of thing. Here's what I really liked about this. I liked the story, and this is where I'm going to get into why I liked it better than the previous one.
Okay.
The previous one was definitely more dynamic. I will acknowledge the second was more dynamic, had more gray areas, more like there's bad on each side.
There's complexity.
Right, there's that complexity. That bothers me though, because like I just want the good guys to be good guys and I want the bad guys to be bad guys.
Right.
More so. And that's I thought the second one was really good. I liked it a lot. This one I liked just a smudging more because it was way more straightforward about like, the apes were going to do this because these people did this specifically, and that's it as far as that's concerned. I didn't want there to be any more because I didn't like a lot of the interactions in the second one, especially in like Monkey Village where they're all talking to each other. And I was like, I was just kind of like, okay, I wasn't invested in the monkeys enough to spend that much time with them. And I was just like, okay, I want to get back to the humans, what's happening with there and see the interactions with them.
Right. I think the second film very strongly was much more about the relationship. The first film was primarily about humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a little bit with them, Caesar and the apes and kind of their, move into this new lifestyle and abilities. The second film was very much about a working hybrid relationship. Can that exist between the apes and the humans?
Right.
Can they get along? Can they do that? And I felt like they gave ample time for both sides to kind of air grievances as well as show goods and bads to sort of both ways of doing things or mindsets, and goods and bads. But then this third film was very much, to me, really just about the apes and their ability to cope in this very negative, harsh, attacking, bad environment. And I think what I was lacking in this film more so that I didn't really get was also I guess there was more of a, when I say depth and kind of complexity to the story, I'm referring more to the motivations of certain actions and the setup and the payoff of certain actions and the reality of why things can take place and do take place in a script, I felt like had more complexity and more, because of that, in a way, more realism behind it. There was a number of scenes in this film where I felt like in war that things would just kind of happen, and there was a lack of like realism to things happening a certain way. I still really like the film.
Yeah.
So again, we're talking about here some negatives, but a good example of this, and we don't want to get into spoiler territory quite yet. I think we'll do a portion of this as a spoilery warning kind of area later.
So I think maybe I get a little bit where you're coming at. One of my biggest negatives for this film was, you already mentioned a little bit, the overuse of slow motion.
Yeah.
And it being partnered with slow motion and some death of some sort, and it almost trying too hard to make you feel emotional.
Right. It felt a bit manipulative in that sense as well. And I think they earned it in some places, but then in others, not in all of them. And we can go more into detail when we go into the spoiler part. And I want to revisit that because there's a couple of specific things there to talk about. What I did like about it is I did feel that the narrative of the story had an emotional. We talked about this. It had an emotional feel to it, and in a theme in a sense. And I was glad to see that they didn't just resolve this down into what I felt like part of the first one. The issue with the first one which was just kind of this presentation of things happening. It really felt like there was some real sad, kind of deep moments, loss, mourning, overcoming grief and revenge, and those elements were at play within the story that made this take on like a higher level than just being like a flat action type film. It's the same elements that were present in, like the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy that made those more, in a sense, rise above just being a standard flat action movie. The stakes for the action scenes at times were a bit flat to me, I think. There was just kind of like, it felt like within those individual action scenes, it's like, okay, well, we just kind of have to have this happen now. And so it's just going to kind of happen. And because I say this often, but this is what I felt like it was, is because reasons. This is the thing that's going to happen now, so it is happening. Where I didn't feel like that was necessarily in the second film too much. So I don't know. What more thoughts do you have?
I don't really have any other negatives. So I did really, just a kind of side note, for the most part, I love the introduction of Steve Zahn's character. For the most part, there are times where the humor didn't work, but he was primarily a humor character.
Yeah.
The other thing was, I enjoyed seeing, Caesar, he was kind of tapping into his rage a little bit, as it says in the synopsis.
Yeah.
But he still had that like level of compassion with him. Like,
but he had moments where he kind of lost himself in it, but then something would happen and would kind of pull him out.
Right. Yeah. There's a moment like where he's interacting with a person and he's like talking to him, and you can tell he's like why, and I was like, that I don't know, I like seeing that. I like seeing like that element to it. But I don't know, I really, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I mean, what else? Anything else you got?
I think the other negative, probably Bad Apes character was a bit at times grating with some of his humor. Was a little bit grating to me. I felt like pretty much all the interactions felt really good and honest between the different characters, and I think the only other minor thing that I could say about the film that I didn't really like would be, I felt like it was a little long.
It was
I felt
long.
like it was stretching
You're right.
certain scenes out that I'm like, you could kind of condense this down.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to see the apes walk from here to there and then there to there and then there to there. It's like, just give me from there to there.
I kept thinking the whole time, like, it's like blizzarding. Aren't you cold? They don't look like they're cold.
No. I mean, they got the fur.
Well, they have fur, but their hands and their feet, they're walking on the snow. Like, if you got your hands in snow before, right? Like, your hands quickly get numb and hurt.
There's a scene where one of the apes puts on a outfit, so it's, I guess they can get cold. That was probably one of the funniest parts of that character.
It's Bad Ape. Anyways.
Sorry, I don't want to spoil it.
It's okay. It's okay. That was a good little thing. I chuckled at that. But anyways, it was, I felt cold a little bit. I was like, and that kind of lends itself to the environment, the cinematography.
Yeah. So one thing I could say specifically without going too further into details was, I felt like the the idea that was driving sort of the human forces, the main military force that was kind of like the antagonistic type thing, led by the Colonel Woody Harrelson. The idea that what they were fighting against, this concept, this thing that had happened and was starting to happen with the world and the people in the world, felt very, at the same time as it kind of made sense, but it also felt very like because reasons. Like things are just, this has happened now, and because of that, things are going to happen. But then that really didn't, it played out in some ways over the course of the film, but then in other ways it didn't really make realistic sense on the basis of what lengths what extremes that had pushed him and the other characters to didn't really play out, I think, realistically to how I would assume that would have happened if that were a real thing. And that real thing in the story world, I'm being very super vague here, but it didn't seem realistic. It seemed kind of forced. It was like, okay, we're going to say this aspect of the people is that now. So,
I will say there was a part with the main villain. I felt like it was anticlimactic. Yeah,
but okay, so I still really like the cinematography. I mean, A+, almost A-ish, on the cinematography. I thought the editing was great, although it was too long. That's not really an editing thing. I thought everything was edited quite well. The action was really good, really in your face, really visceral and real at times. I mean, especially with some of the stuff with the laser guns at the beginning and everything. Not laser guns, but laser sights.
Laser guns.
Sorry, laser sights, I should say. That was all really great. I thought that the action was really good. Special effects again, hugely awesomely. But one of the biggest things that I rate a film on is story, and I felt like that was the weakest part of this film was the story. So, any other thoughts?
No, that's it. What would you rate this thing?
I give this one a B+. I give it a 89%.
No.
So
Okay.
It's like 88, 89.
Me too. Same exact thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess then. All right.
89.
I was expecting a little bit less from you.
No, a little bit less from me. A little bit more. I was going to say, my thing with getting a movie into the 90s.
Yeah.
I have to love it.
Okay. See, this comes down to the critic versus fan perspective we talk about here.
Right. So it's almost like there's this...
Because you're saying all positive things.
Right.
And so I was assuming, well, there's no real negatives for you, so why not be an A, right?
Right. Yeah. So, no, there's things that were definitely negative, and I think the length and just the drawn-out manipulative emotion things, I was kind of annoyed with almost.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, stop doing that. And I don't want to be annoyed in a movie.
Agreed.
When I rated... What are my highest rated movies this year? I'm thinking Logan and Baby Driver. I'm thinking those. I wasn't really annoyed with anything in those movies. And there were just really minimal things. And I give those things, high 90s, So it's just kind of one of those things I was like, there's things that were annoying to me. So, I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
89 for me. Cool. So you want to jump into the spoiler territory?
Yeah, so why don't we get going?
Let's give it, this is your spoiler warning. So we're going to get into this. You haven't seen it, skip ahead a little bit, and we're going to talk about
10,
this.
15 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so we're going into it. 3, 2, 1. Caesar dies.
Woody Harrelson dies.
And Woody Harrelson dies. And it's funny. We always joke when we do these spoilers, and the main character dies.
and this one's actually true.
Yeah,
it's actually true. Although, not till the end of the film, so he ran his good race.
His arc.
He ran his monkey race. He got that monkey stuff done.
It's good monkey race.
He isn't enough monkeying around with it. Oh, that's not too... I'm going to stop with the puns, because there's a bazillion different ape puns that I can make use of here. So, I do want to... So, in talking about the spoiler territory stuff, we tiptoed around it. I do want to kind of go into a bit... aspects and specific elements of the story that I think really just kind of frustrated me. And I found myself, the biggest thing is for you, the frustration moments, I think what you could agree on is that takes you out of the story. It takes you out of the film.
Right.
It disconnects you from that world.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with me when I see bad story or a big concept that we talk about is when the rules of the world are broken.
Are you talking about the evolution of the virus?
Well, that's one aspect for sure. So that automatically felt very weird and manipulative to me. It's like they had to give Woody Harrelson's character some sort of deep reason for why he was this militaristic, crazy man that would just do all these bad things to the apes. And I didn't need that. Woody Harrelson literally could have just been
that way.
I hate these apes. They're horrible. That's awful. Or they're awful. I'm going to go and try and kill them. And maybe maybe one of his sons died because of the virus and that kind of drove him to insanity or something. His family died, or maybe even one of the apes killed his son on accident or something.
They didn't even really explain it.
Right. But they drove him to in my mindset, right, if you're a person that's literally willing to go to the extremes of murdering what is basically murdering your own son because of trying to, what he's saying is protect like the mankind's, ability to be humans. If you're willing to go to those lengths, it didn't make any sense why he wouldn't go to sort of more extreme lengths with the apes themselves. It was like he was almost showing this compassionate side to Caesar. The very moment that Caesar showed up, and he even tried to kill him. Like he even went and tried to kill him, and you could make this argument that, well, it's like maybe in meeting him, he was trying to he was having these moments where he was like all the built up anger and sadness and mourning and issues that had been there from, killing his son and murdering all these people had kind of like come to a head because of meeting Caesar. But it literally didn't make any sense to me why he didn't like just kill Caesar right at that moment. You know?
Yeah.
If he had needed Caesar to get the apes to do what he was saying, then it would have made sense.
Yeah.
But he already had them doing what he was saying. And the only thing that Caesar was accomplishing by keeping him there was to bring insurrection and further like discontent amongst the apes.
Yeah.
There was no reason for him to just not shoot him right then and there. So that was like one thing with the script. Additionally, I'm getting into like the bads here. So I'm just going to be talking like Spitfire bad stuff. So don't think that I'm hating on the film. But
and getting to that one story element that I didn't like is they kept teasing. Like one of the soldiers, like Caesar lets go at the beginning. They keep going back to him, like, oh, maybe this guy's gonna play into
pointless.
like being a good guy. It was pointless because he ended up just still being a bad guy,
right?
Shooting Caesar and killing Caesar,
exactly.
Essentially,
yeah.
And so I was just like, what was the point of that? Like, why would you even show his face? It doesn't matter. It could have been anybody that did that.
Yeah. So some other elements, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah,
totally agree with that. There was no real. And that was one of the things that I did like about the first one. There was setup and payoff. You know what I mean? A setup and payoff of things that we'd even seen in the first film and characterizations. With this film, there wasn't really a whole bunch of really good, solid setup and payoff as much. There was some, but not quite as much. The biggest setup and payoff was through Caesar's arc in and of itself, I think, and the things that he went through. And you could say maybe almost there was like a poetic payoff for Woody Harrelson, but that felt very manipulated because it didn't make sense why they have this hugely militaristic, very, everybody's like, in line and, force. A little girl could somehow, so Nova somehow manages to work her way into the middle through an open door of this base and just talk and walk back and forth and give him water and give him food and is nobody watching the apes at this point? Like, you can see that they're doing like guards on
patrols.
And so at that point, like you'd said earlier in the first half of the review, that it felt like some of this stuff was just there to manipulate because they needed you to feel bad for the apes and bad for Nova, or that like Nova is a good person. And so they're like manipulating these circumstances when it's unrealistic for that thing to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the whole like stupidity of like the setup and payoff. They go through this whole like rigmarole of they have to like go in underneath and then they find these like holes. How did it even make sense that there was like these holes that were in the ground that they didn't find as a military base, that they just had never explored? They didn't seal off. They didn't put a patrol area in there. And then not only that, but like you can literally just like reach your hand up through the dirt and it reveals like this hole. I'm like, would nobody walk over that? Like, would nobody go across?
They had to dig it out,
like that.
They had to dig it out. That didn't bother me as much.
But it's little things like that where it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to stretch my belief here to think that nobody would have just like simply walked over that spot and fallen through. Or that like the perfect example, which this felt super manipulative and stupid to me. And it's supposed to be this like big building moment, but like the moment where the guard gets the poop thrown on him.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny, but like at the same time, it was like, what? And so they throw the poop on him. And then like the one guard decides that he's just going to go by himself into this cage without telling anybody else, with the keys into the cage, and then like do what? He's gonna like force them to tell him which one of the monkeys threw the poo on him, and then happens to also be standing over the exact spot he needs to stand over in order for the monkey, the ape underneath of him, to grab him by the legs and pull him down. It's like that all just felt super manipulated. It all felt very like, what is that? Like, why? How would that even? Why would that happen?
It's meticulous. They're genius monkeys.
It's
Joel.
just like, how would they even all know that this one guard would happen to do any of that? Why wouldn't you just shoot one of the monkeys? You know what I mean? Like any of this
apes.
stuff.
They're not
apes.
monkeys.
Sorry, I keep calling them monkeys, but
that's highly offensive.
It all felt like a lot of it was adding up to get like key manipulation, even the separating the baby from the father, you know what I mean, and the reunion of the two, and let's make these humans into these like dark forces. And then they tried to have that moment, you know, where in a way the Colonel Woody Harrelson, I didn't really know what they were trying to accomplish, but when he's explaining this virus that the people are getting, and it was like they were trying to make you almost connect with them and see him as like relatable, but he was so ridiculous and crazy and doing what he had done, and it was so obviously extreme that like you could never relate to him as a person. So I'm like, so you're trying to have me kind of relate to him, but then also what he's doing is so ridiculous and stupid. And
he shaves his head outside in freezing cold temperatures.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things like this that I'm talking about that I know this sounds like little stuff and I'm nitpicking, but that all adds up to a big picture of the film moving me out of, in moments like that, I get taken out of the film. Because I'm going like, that doesn't make sense. That's not realistic. I don't understand. Like there was things in the start. I mean, the ending was more frustrating to me in a sense than anything, in a couple of different key ways. I didn't get the avalanche thing. That wasn't something they had set up. And it's like they just had to have this avalanche where like the entire human force just completely gets wiped out. I could understand.
They created the avalanche.
They didn't create the avalanche on purpose, though. There wasn't.
No, it was an accident, but it was because of that giant explosion.
Right, but like, where's the? In a sense, like it doesn't need
show
like
the mountaintop beforehand.
Well, show like why is that? Like, what difference does that make? Instead of it just being like, it doesn't feel like righteous at that moment that this has happened to the human forces. It almost just seems like this big accident happened to accidentally kill off all the human forces because, again, reasons.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I understand an avalanche that can happen, and obviously
it's real life.
Yeah, it's real life, and that could happen. But it just, again, that was another thing that all felt kind of manipulated in a way. So that was the main reason that I put it down to like a B- kind of or a B+ kind of.
You're talking about it like a B-. I'm
talking about it like a B-, but it's still a B+ film to me because there was definitely still moments of really effective emotion and strength in the characters. I mean, all the relationships between the individual apes really made sense. There wasn't anything that felt uncharacteristic of them.
Right.
The plot had progression that was unrealistic, but the characters felt real and like they stuck with, you know, like one of the apes didn't suddenly decide to go do something that they would never do. Yeah. So there was good characterization there. The dialogue and the voice work between the different apes was great, and even the sign language. And I liked how they used the subtle moments switching between like the voice and the sign language, you know, which I thought was really effective at times and really done well. I'm really more just upset on a story basis of the way different things happen with some of the story stuff and the presentation of it, and the way that it felt like they were just trying to manipulate you into feeling bad for the apes.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I think a lot of it too, I didn't go in and look at this. I didn't go in and look at the comparisons between the two films, or the series, I should say, but it felt like they were trying to relate some elements to the original series and to like the original film in a very strong way. And it felt like because of that, certain elements in the story might have been more so there. You know, like even Nova, like she's from, in a way, I don't think that because they've said that this doesn't connect into the original series of films. This is a reinterpretation, a reimagination.
And it still technically would have been a prequel.
Right, it's a prequel, but in a different universe.
Yeah, like the Marvel Cinematic
Right, but
universe.
it felt like they were trying to, and you know, I always get ticked off about this kind of stuff when they're like trying to force in elements from like a separate idea or separate franchise or like a universe or something outside of that film that doesn't need to be there other than to just be there. Like you didn't need to have this like weird moment where Nova gets this little like thing, and then he just decides randomly he's just going to call her the first word on there. Like there's no reason like why he wouldn't call her Chevy. You know what I mean? Like,
Chevy's the smallest font, dude.
Yeah, but like there was like elements of it, or like call her Chevy Nova, or call Nova Chevy or something like that.
What if she got like a Dodge
It just felt like
Avenger?
they were trying to like set that. Yeah,
we will call you Avenger.
It just felt like they were trying to set that up because you've seen the first film, so you know that that's there, and even the way that. I don't know if this is where I didn't go in and look and see if they were doing this as a comparison thing, but like the way that she didn't talk, and that it was a function of the virus mutating. Because in the first film, she doesn't really talk, if I remember correctly. In the original Planet of the Apes, I don't think Nova talked at all.
I don't know.
And humans didn't talk, and that's why like, oh my goodness, this guy's talking. That's how they knew he was like different.
Right.
So I don't know. Little things like that added up to get me a little frustrated.
Okay.
And not like it as much as the second film. I felt like the second film, everything progressed realistically. There was no extreme, ridiculous, like just get emotional manipulation. Yeah. It's like good people did good things and bad things, but for right and wrong reasons, and good decisions were made, and the plot progressed realistically, and it wasn't over the top. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, these giant things are happening now. It was like, no, this is realistic why this would happen. So
yeah. I think before we wrap this section up, I think more importantly, Joel, if a monkey named you, or if an ape named you after a car, what would it be?
It's a tough question. I might have to get back to you on that.
Yaris?
No. Not even close. I'd take
Smart
Tesla.
car.
Tesla. That's an actual name.
Hi, Tesla.
Hi, Tesla.
Okay.
I'm trying to think here. What would be a good name? Camry? That's what I drive. So.
Hey, Camry.
How about you, Matt? Any thoughts? Mustang?
Hey, Civic.
Civic. Okay, good, very good.
Hey, Civic. Hey, Corolla. Anyways. No, okay. Anyways, yeah, thanks, guys. That's going to wrap up our movie review segment. And we'll get into a few other things here, but stay tuned for a little bit here, and then we're going to get right into our Tube Talk segment. All right, welcome back. This is our Tube Talk segment. Segment? Segment.
It's gonna be more than a sec. I don't know if you're saying like
segment.
Segment. Yeah.
Okay, it's a new word, guys. I made something up. Okay.
Segment is a word.
I know, but I said segment.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not a word.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, so welcome back to our Tube Talk segment, where we talk about what's happening new in TV, review some old shows, check out the new shows, give you the lowdown on them, then also some other TV-related things. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, we're going to be talking about some of the Emmy nominations.
Yeah.
And then
Emmy noms.
We'll start off with that, and then we're going to dive into the Game of Thrones episode that aired last night, and then also get into Riverdale a little bit.
Right, which I just started watching.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And just so you know, when we get to those segments, we actually do talk spoilers, and we've always done that, but we want to make sure that in order to stay kind of current, it's hard to not talk about what happened in the most recent episode.
Yeah, especially for Game of Thrones.
Right, so
has a tendency to really frustrate people.
If that's not your jam, then when we get to that point, you can just turn it off.
Or plug your ears and go, la, 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 la.
Exactly.
For
and
about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little longer.
Exactly. So let's jump right in, though. I want to get into the Emmy nominations because there's quite a bit of good and quite a bit of meh and quite a bit of what happened. So to kick it off, I guess I don't know if there's anybody out there that doesn't know the Emmy nominations. It's kind of like the Oscars, but for TV. Mm-hmm. So it's probably the most deal. Right. It's the most notoriety that you could get as a television show is what I feel like, right?
Yes, and it's becoming, in the past, it was always a big deal, but it was less of a big deal than like the Oscars.
Right.
Because television was generally in the past looked at as more of like, the small screen. It's the smaller medium. And people were always looking at like films as like the preeminent, most artistic, higher level merit to those types of projects. You could cover deeper issues. But as we've seen this surgence of, more filmic like shows, much more interesting ongoing narratives and styles with films, and it's kind of become ubiquitous where film stars are now TV stars and back and forth. And so it's grown, I think, importance, what I'm trying to say, to the point where there's shows that I feel like are legitimately like films, just in a really long format. So I have a lot more respect for it now, and I
Yep.
think there's also some. To me, there's a difficulty with a TV show that's different than with like a film. Films are very intense and can be very difficult for actors and directors, but for the most part, a lot of those are like 3 to 4 months, and then you're kind of like on and with your life. Whereas with shows, they do take like a few months to film, but you have to like live in that character over the course of a couple of years.
Right.
And so they can be, over the course of time, very difficult to like stick with like a certain characterization or
Yeah.
plot the characterization of a character. I mean, talk about Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
Walt's character goes through this huge arc and he's got to remember between filming, like, okay, this is where I ended, this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
So all I have to say, I have a lot of respect for Emmys.
Oh yeah, no, it's
the
good.
Emmys,
It's definitely a really good thing, and I agree. It's definitely something that's grown, rightly so,
Yes.
as in importance and in just notoriety for a show as being super legit.
Yep.
So let's kick it off right away. So the nomination list, we'll just kind of go through it by category here, and we'll kind of see what stands out to us. So for the nominations for Best Drama Series, you have Better Call Saul, The Crown, The Handmaid's Tale, House of Cards, Stranger Things, This Is Us, and Westworld. I have seen a good chunk of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that Stranger Things is on there.
Yep.
I like that Better Call Saul is on there. Obviously, we talked that show at great length.
Mm-hmm.
The Crown, I've actually seen about half the episodes. And it's extremely well done.
Yeah.
It's a period piece, and I'm sure it costs a ton of money to make.
Yeah.
Just because everything's super detailed, but well acted as well. I can't give you a full story arc on it. This Is Us is great. I love This Is Us.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did enjoy Westworld though. Too.
Yeah.
I know. We feel differently on that, but there's some really good things in there. House of Cards is good, but I'm behind, so you're a little more up to date. What stands out to you on that?
I think the big ones that stand out, as far as like what I've seen, I haven't seen The Crown yet. I need to watch that. And Handmaid's Tale. I haven't seen This Is Us. Westworld kind of fell apart to me. Didn't enjoy too much. Stranger Things, loved it.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if they ended up winning the Emmy for this.
Stranger Things?
Yeah, I would be really surprised if they ended up winning, to be honest. It just doesn't scream out the kind of show that usually would win for a drama series.
It's probably going to be This Is Us.
I'm thinking either This Is Us or The Crown. That's kind of my guesstimation. Better Call Saul I actually really loved as well.
Yeah.
But it's a sequel.
Yeah.
And I think, or a prequel, sidequel kind of, and just I think the odds are against it kind of winning for that reason. And The Crown has that. The big reason I should say is that The Crown kind of has that reviewer buzz right now. I mean, it's getting a lot of critic acclaim, and everybody's like, "Ooh, The Crown, The Crown, The Crown." So I think out of all of them, to me, I mean, I've heard good things about most all of them, but The Crown is the big one that I would think. I need to watch it.
My wife's watched the first season twice.
Okay. Yeah.
She's big on like the period pieces though. So.
I got you. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
could
no,
see
it's
that
cool.
taking it for sure. I could see The Crown taking The Crown.
Yeah.
The Emmy Crown. There
That'd
you
be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. There's definitely some worthwhile mentions in there. I will say, that I think I would have liked to see, and this might come up a little bit later on because I don't think it's in here at all, but I would have liked to see The Americans. I'm actually still watching that show.
Yeah.
It's really good, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen that on here anywhere, so.
But yeah, I don't know. I think some of their leads got nominated for different things, but the next section is comedy series.
Yep.
And you have everything from Atlanta to Black-ish to Master of None, Modern Family, Silicon Valley, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Veep.
Yes.
You see what had happened was, so that's an Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt thing. But Atlanta, I think I almost said Danny Glover.
Yeah.
Donald Glover.
There you go.
He does that. He's a super talented guy. I haven't had a chance to check out a lot. I think I saw the first episode. I thought it was good, but I just didn't have time to keep going. I haven't seen a lot of these recently.
Yeah, I haven't been watching a lot of the comedies on any of the networks really. I just haven't had a chance to kind of get around to them. I think for whatever reason, it just, I don't know. They just haven't intrigued me, and they haven't brought a lot of interest to me.
Right.
I know that I think out of all of them, the ones that I've seen the most of, definitely Silicon Valley. I watched that one pretty much all the way through this current season's. Caught up. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I enjoyed that. It got a little stale to me.
Right.
The humor style kind of stayed all the way through. It wasn't a good one for me to binge watch. I would say that. I kind of tried to binge watch it.
It's like a dose show.
Yeah,
you know?
like when you need just kind of like a little bit of crazy, lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah.
Very Tina Fey style, then go for that. I haven't watched Atlanta Blackish or Master of None, a bit of Modern Family and a bit of Veep. I need to catch up on Veep. I'm only like 3 episodes in the whole series. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say what would probably win this. Probably not Silicon Valley is what I would say. I think this season was a bit of a lull for them, a bit of a step back and step down. Their viewing numbers are also way down. So
yeah. I'd say same with like Modern Family. They've kind of had their day. They're like on season 8 or 9 now. So they were sweeping for years in a row.
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe kind of gone away from that a little bit. But jumping into the next couple, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there are some really good ones here. I want to kind of maybe address them at the same time.
You did get in drama actress, you did get a Carrie Russell for the Americans.
She's great. She's great. I think Matthew Rhys is incredible.
Yeah.
I've never seen him in anything before, so this is he's awesome. I feel like he's a distant cousin of James McAvoy. I kind of feel like they look alike a little bit. I don't know why. Anyways, when we get to the drama actress section, you have Viola Davis, who from How to Get Away with Murder, Claire Foy, The Crown, Elizabeth Moss, A Handmaid's Tale, Carrie Russell, The Americans, Evan Rachel Wood, Westworld, Robin Wright, House of Cards. From what I've seen, Robin Wright's fantastic. Most things that I see her in.
Yeah.
I don't know about recently though, because I haven't seen House of Cards the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Evan Rachel Wood, I thought she was good in Westworld. Carrie Russell, I think is fantastic. Viola Davis, I saw the first half of the first season of that,
right?
And she's really good in that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. She did some great film roles.
Right,
recently,
she was in Fences, right?
Yeah, but I think she was like the standout in that for me. Robin Wright, I think from House of Cards she did a good job. I mean, it was a good season. It wasn't like the best. We talked about this. I mean, there was some really elements at the end that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
Sure.
And I think she did, out of all the seasons that she's been in, she had probably the most large role in this season. So I could see her potentially kind of taking this one away. Westworld, Evan Rachel Wood, not a bad actress, but that role is so flat to me. I mean, she's literally playing like
she's a robot, though, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but she's just, it's such a flat role. There's not a lot of.
It's like saying C-3PO has no depth.
I think even in the role, I don't know. I just wouldn't see her winning this personally. I don't think she did that good of a job, to be honest. And not an attack against her. I'm not saying she did a bad job, but it just wasn't like, I wasn't watching the show and going like every time I saw her on screen, like, wow, she's just doing such an amazing job. So yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Claire Foy from The Crown.
Yeah.
See that
I could see that happening too. Okay, so getting down to the actor side of it, a lot of the same shows. Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us. He's great. Everybody in that show is great, so that's not really saying much, but he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins, Westworld. Kind of just doing his Anthony Hopkins things.
I definitely wouldn't see him winning for that.
Right.
Bob
Odenkirk. Great. Has he won before?
I don't think he went. I don't know. I don't know if he won. I know he's definitely been nominated.
I like him. He won't win it, but I'd like to see him get some love at some point.
Yeah, it's looking like he didn't win. Sorry, won. He didn't win. It says nominee, but not winner.
Matthew Rhys from The Americans. I would love to see him. That's probably just because I'm on the Americans kick right now.
Yeah.
But he is so good. Like, it's so weird. He can go from like the super charming like dad where he's like involved in his kid's life and hanging out, where you see the love on his face, to the next scene where his face just he's just so angry and he's like yelling at somebody, like, oh, he looks evil right now, like so crazy. But he's awesome. Liev Schreiber, Ray Donovan, I haven't heard it's good.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, House of Cards. We all know about Kevin Spacey. And Milo Ventimiglia from This Is Us.
Yep.
Peter Petrelli from Heroes.
Yeah, I could definitely see. I could definitely see Bob Odenkirk winning this year.
Really?
I
Okay.
think out of all the seasons of Better Call Saul, this was probably the most. He had a lot that he was dealing with. I mean, he's dealing with kind of a lot of different loss with the aspects with his brother and going back into the past and showing him as this other guy, and then kind of the heights. I think he had to accomplish a lot with this season. I could see him. I personally would like to see him.
I think Sterling K. Brown's going to take it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he is going to take it.
All right.
And then we get into like some more things here that, and before we get into much more, I actually want to jump down here. There's a section I want to talk about this because I know that you and I both
reality show.
No. I'm getting into where'd it go? It's like where'd it go? It's a limited series movie or no
television movies.
No, where'd it go?
Because I haven't seen a lot of those television movies. I didn't know that Dolly Parton's Christmas of Many Colors Circle of Love got nominated.
No, I think that's in the same one though. What do you?
Yeah,
oh no,
Black Mirror.
Television movie. That's it.
Yeah.
So it says Black Mirror, specifically the San Junipero episode,
Right.
which was crazy to me. Just the concept of it is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, as a concept, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the Black Mirror side of it.
I have to catch up on Sherlock because that's another one too.
Yeah.
Black Mirror is one of those things though. It's so out there.
Yeah.
In concept and there's always somewhat of a twist of
Right.
sorts.
They usually go. That's I think one of the reasons why it's tough. I really liked it, but I didn't as a Black Mirror thing. I almost liked it more as like a standalone thing, but it was still really good. I'm torn. It didn't have like a really darkish kind of side to it. Like it kind of did. The twist was kind of there, but it was more of just a straightforward dramatic kind of romance type story, you know? So I didn't really get that as like a Black Mirror type property, but
Right.
it was still good. I thought it was really well put together. I understand why it's nominated, I think, out of that, or Dolly Parton's Christmas. I think I can understand it, being nominated.
Right.
If that's the bar, not to hit against Dolly Parton. I'm sure we have maybe a couple Dolly Parton fans out there listening.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A couple others I just want to kind of bring up. It's a little bit down here. Is a supporting actor in a drama series, supporting actress in a drama series.
Yeah.
And you have, they actually have for the supporting actor, you have John Lithgow from The Crown, Jonathan Banks from Better Call Saul, which is cool. Mandy Patinkin from Homeland, Michael Kelly, House of Cards, David Harbour, Stranger Things, which I'll tell you about that in a second.
Yeah.
Ron Jones from This Is Us, and Jeffrey Wright from Westworld. Jeffrey Wright is probably my favorite part of Westworld.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Better Call Saul, I love seeing Jonathan Banks there. He's super subtle, like subdued, like he's hardly in it almost sometimes.
Yeah.
But David Harbour, what ended up in Stranger Things, ended up being one of those surprises for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like him at first. He's just like this like lazy cop.
Yeah.
Kind of, it seems like it's first it kind of portrays this lazy, sleazy cop. And then he ends up being like one of my favorite parts of the show. I'm like, oh, dude, he's just totally doing things now. Like,
Yeah.
Like when he infiltrates that base at first, like, or whatever. I was like,
Punches the guy
I was like,
in,
what? That's awesome.
Yeah. There's some good arc that he has in that show.
Yeah.
He was definitely one of the better. I casting wise, I hadn't seen him in anything. I think prior to this necessarily that I recognized him from.
He was in Suicide Squad, and that's all I saw him in.
Yeah, but
he's like a senator guy. Or
but
something.
yeah, he did a great job with that. I would definitely like to see him get this potentially. I don't know. It's a toss up for me. I could see Michael Kelly also getting it for House of Cards.
Yeah.
He did a pretty solid job with that season as well. He wasn't in it as much this year, but I feel like the work that he did in prior seasons would really like me to see him get it. But,
right.
I don't know. And a lot of this, I will say, people might be out there go like, well, he won for a prior year or something. Like I haven't had a chance to go back and look at all these different Emmy nominations.
Me
It's
too.
the first
me
year
too.
that we've really been kind of following it super duper closely. So yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, just kind of noteworthy, and this will probably be one of the last ones I think we wrap this one up on, is the supporting actress in a drama series. And I think this will be interesting because there's a lot of buzz from what I'm hearing from The Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 nominations in that category from Ann Dowd and Samira Wiley. But what I'm really curious to see is Millie Bobby Brown was nominated, and when Stranger Things came out, there was so much Millie Bobby Brown hype, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see if that's carried over, which it feels like it's been a year. since that's come out. So
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how that carries
It's
over.
gonna be a battle. She's young. It's gonna be interesting to see, as a person her age, if she'd be capable of getting the Emmy nod.
Right.
But she did a great job-ish. I thought she was good-ish in the role.
Good-ish.
We could talk all about Stranger Things if
Egos.
we wanted to, but yeah.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Anyways, so just those are some of the main highlights on the Emmy nomination breakdowns. Next, I want to jump into, and this is where we'll kind of dive into some spoilers. So if you're not really wanting to hear any, we'll start off with Game of Thrones. Now, Joel, you're going to be kind of our resident Game of Thrones expert.
Yes, sir. I have been to all of the SDCC panels.
Okay, yeah. And have seen all of them where I am like, I am all the seasons behind.
Yeah.
So
I will share this. This is my one Game of Thrones panel story that I have to two. One, I'll share one time I asked the question to the panel, which went horrible, train wreck. And then the second one, I had a really awful occurrence. I was just starting to watch the show and get to know the different characters and the elements, and I was trying to catch up because I knew they were going to be doing the first Game of Thrones panel at Comic-Con, which they're going to be doing it at Hall H. They were going to be doing, and they've done it in that one ever since, and that's the big one. Like, if you get into Hall H, that's the big deal. That's where the biggest stuff goes to. And so I was trying to get caught up with the show before I went because I didn't want to have anything spoiled for me.
Right.
And so I'd managed to get up into season 3, basically before the Red Wedding had taken place. And I hadn't seen anything with that, and I didn't know I'd managed to avoid spoilers very well. And so we go into the panel, and they did this. It was an amazing thing, but it was also horrible for me at the same time. They'd made a video, which was a cut together edit of all the deaths over the entire course of Game of Thrones so far. Yeah.
It ruined it for you.
So I'm watching. Well, here's what happened. So I'm watching it, and I'm getting there, and then all of a sudden it jumps to the Red Wedding, and I'm like, well, I guess we're doing spoilers.
Like we already did the spoiler warnings.
So Robb Stark getting killed. Like,
everybody
no!
gets died.
And then I see Catherine Stark getting killed. I'm like, no. And so I close my eyes, and I'm like, I don't want to see this because I just it's getting ruined for me. And I should have known better. Like, people are probably out there like, well, why'd you even watch to begin with? But it was like so awesome. It's funny because it had like sound effects, and everybody in the whole crowd is interacting. And so I shut my eyes and didn't see the rest of it. And so I get to that episode, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be depressing. I know they're going to die.
Yeah.
And the first thing that happens in that episode is the guy goes up and starts stabbing Robb Stark's wife right in the stomach.
I know.
And I didn't see that in the thing, so they got me a second time. I was like, she dies too? And I was like,
it's crazy.
So they actually got me twice with the Red Wedding. It's just ridiculous.
That's craziness, man.
So, but I am watching this. I am caught up. I just watched the most recent episode.
What's it called? Dragonstone?
Yeah, Dragonstone.
Okay.
It's called Enter the Dragonstone. No, I'm just kidding. Just Dragonstone. Which, because it's the big entrance of Cersei getting to her home. I guess you could say her like castle that she was from, her heritage, which is Dragonstone. So, this is most of you probably know, if you're listening to this, you're probably aware and up on your Game of Thrones, where things are at with the production. But so it's a 2-part season. They're doing it as a season 7 and season 8, but it's 7 episodes in each season.
Right.
Mainly due to the fact that they said because of the story so short that's left, and then additionally the production costs that they're trying to pump a lot into.
It's similar to what they did with the finale of Breaking Bad.
Right. And so my big fear going into this is especially the last season, there was, so much happened in that last season. It was intense. It was one of the best episodes or the best seasons of Game of Thrones that I had ever seen. Every episode's like things happening, people dying, all this stuff's going crazy. And there was definitely some bad elements in there. There was definitely some good bad elements in there. But overall, it was like a really good season. And then, so my big concern with this season was trying to stretch it into what they were doing and doing it the way that they're doing it. Are they going to have enough story left to make it? Because at this point, it's pretty much the battle lines are drawn. You more or less know sort of where the story's going, and there's still a couple different relationships that obviously are going to like come together in different ways, and some information that you still need to get to know. Like, Jon Snow is going to obviously pair up with Cersei at some point, and I think they've already given you little hints of that with this recent episode where you find out that like this glass that they use is found, the dragon glass is found at Dragonstone, which is where Cersei's at, and Jon Snow finds out about that because you've got Sam who's doing all this research I can't think the name of the place, but he's doing all this research and he finds out that that's where it's at, and so he sends a raven to go to the so that's obviously like a connection point. So all these lines have been drawn, and where it's going to go. My fear was like, how are they going to stretch this out to make it last this many episodes without getting it stale? And I think the first episode was a good representation of sort of where they're headed with the season. I was expecting a little bit more to happen. To be honest, it was a little bit. It was good. It didn't feel like meandering, like some of the issues, like especially in season 5, was so meandering, and it would just be like these long conversations and nothing's really going on. It was like it didn't really feel like that. It felt like things were progressing and getting there. So I enjoyed it. I think I was expecting a bit more, like I said, from it. I was hoping for a bit more conflict, a bit more action, a bit more kind of in your face. And it starts out with this really kind of strong, bold scene, which was cool in a way because it's something that they had been building towards for so long, which is, this payback that really needs to be done for the Red Wedding. And it's,
is it the Arya thing?
Yeah. I felt that was like, in a sense, it was like good, and her dialogue there was really strong, but I was also a bit let down. I don't know. I wasn't let down necessarily, but it just felt a little bit forced. It felt a little bit silly. And I think that more has to do with the Arya story arc, because I felt like one of the things that I didn't like about season 6 was her story arc. I felt like they did a very poor job of progressing her and
like
presenting
the
her.
Thing and all
yeah,
that?
Because it's like they kind of, in the story, show her going through a little bit of training and kind of learning a couple things. And then suddenly she makes this huge leap by the end of the season where she suddenly like knows how to be like a master assassin. But even just like prior to that, she'd already gotten
master
stabbed
cook with a pie, right?
And then exactly. So they never really showed me her progressing into how to be this like master assassin person.
Yeah.
And she just kind of was there. And so it just felt very poor story arc for her character. And the showrunners have actually gone into detail and said that they apologize because they felt like they mishandled her story a little bit.
Okay. Interesting.
So it was rewarding in the sense that the Freys are being dealt with, but it was also a bit like, because Arya is doing these things that I haven't grown comfortable yet with. She's just kind of doing them. So, but that was good. I think the big bad of this episode, if anything, was actually the cameo appearance that we got. And there's a lot of flack that's being thrown on Twitter right now about this. Ed Sheeran made his cameo appearance in this episode, and it just felt very forced and kind of silly. And you talked about this. They brought in, musicians and stuff, especially for like the Red Wedding in other episodes, and famous actors, but they've always been more in background roles. They've never had dialogue. They've never like interacted really with like main characters.
Right.
Ed Sheeran has dialogue. He's like interacting with Arya in this scene, and they're
he singing? I'm in love.
Well, that's how
with
the episode.
of you.
That's how the scene starts. Like she's coming like on. She's approaching them, and you like see him singing around the campfire with the boys, and she like sees that, and that's like how the scene starts. And I was like, I guess. I mean,
was he rapping?
No,
okay.
He was just singing, and then she sits down, and it was actually, I liked the scene. I just didn't like his role in the scene because it's shown the first time that Arya actually has had people really treat her well and decently in like a really long time, and there's been so much just negativity and darkness in this show and series so far that it was kind of nice to have like a bit of a breath with her character. And that's kind of the feeling I'm getting so far with the season, is that a lot of the bad people are going to get their comeuppance, even from the very beginning with Walder Frey and the way that everything happened, like with his family and lineage and everything. So I liked it. I think as far as overall progression of the story and interest and the things that they presented, it really just was more of a setup episode. Yeah. It was more just kind of like showing you where things are at.
Well, they got to give you more people to hate too.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't present really pretty much any new characters. There was a few with Sam.
I thought maybe they were going to give a new like Ramsay Bolton 2.0 or something. And
no, it's pretty much like I said, at this point, the lines have been drawn. You kind of know who the bad people are. And I'm already starting to make guesses and think like, okay, well, that's going to be that, and she's going to do that, and he's going to go there. And like, I'm already starting to figure different elements of that out. Like they introduce... I can't think of the name right now. Euron Greyjoy comes back into the story.
It's an unfortunate name.
Yeah, it's just there. So he's proposing to Cersei and saying like, well, we have a lot of people that hate us in common, so we should join forces. And he said that, and she turns him down, saying that she can't trust him. And he's like, well, I need to go do this like big thing. And I think what he's going to probably end up doing, if I had to guess, is going down to like the southern areas,
like Mississippi.
No.
Okay.
And they sort of kill off some of the Viper girls, like the Sand girls down there, and maybe bring, because they killed her daughter.
Right.
So I'm guessing that he might take one of them out, and that would actually be cool for me because they kind of don't really have an element in the story right now. They don't really have a dog in the race. They're kind of just upset because of what happened. Well, I guess you could say what
Oberyn. What was his name? Or is that his?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
name?
with Oberyn. I mean, they do have a dog in the race. I shouldn't have actually. That's actually not very accurate, but they're just a little bit disconnected from the story, I think, a little bit right now. So I think he's going to go down there. Maybe my thought was he'd go down there, rile up some issues, and then come back with like one of their heads on a pike or something and be like, all right, well, now we should get married. And then maybe they would get married to each other or something. I don't know, but that's a lot to progress in the story. So he could go down there and just get killed off too.
Yeah.
I don't really necessarily know, but I'm excited to see where it's going. I don't think they failed with this episode. I think it was a good episode. It wasn't the most exciting, interesting episode as far as progress. The best scene of the entire episode, I think, for me, was the scene where Sam, because it's showing Sam going through sort of his duties and how he's trying to sort of make do with where he's at. And it does this really, I don't know, some people probably had a real nasty problem with it, but as he's like training to be this maester, he's having to like clean the toilets, which the funny joke about thrones there, I don't know, but so he's cleaning these toilets and basically taking the bedpans and pouring them into the toilets and then pouring the meals for the people, and he's kind of in this cyclical thing where he's like picking up the bedpans, pouring it out, then pouring the meals, and the soup that they're eating is like the same every single time, and it starts to look like the stuff with the bedpans, and it's nasty, but it's just the way that they're intercutting it, where it's like it slowly picks up pace. It was probably one of the best like editing style decisions I've seen for Game of Thrones in a while, where they did like something very stylistically.
Oh, gotcha.
Where it's like slowly picking up pace. It's because like first he's just getting like disgusted and almost vomiting from these bedpans, and then it like jumps to the food, and they like, show a shot of the food, and the food kind of like brownish, and you're like, ugh. And then they jump to the, it was just really funny. And like I said, there's a pun in there for the whole Game of Thrones toilet thing somewhere. But so I would give this episode a rating of probably a B+.
Okay, cool.
I think. Yeah, like an 87-ish.
Nice.
I'm excited to see where they're going. I'm hoping we actually get some action.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen. It's going to
I mean, I can already see Daenerys and Jon sort of coming together with the dragon glass thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they first interact.
You don't
with
see
each other,
Jon and Daenerys being on the same sides at all?
I think they will.
Because isn't Tyrion on his side, her side too?
I think what you'll see is Jon and Cersei and Tyrion teaming up together to take out the Walkers and Cersei. Because
you just said Cersei and Tyrion.
Oh, sorry, Jon, Daenerys, and Tyrion teaming up to take out Cersei's. Yeah. But then additionally take out the Walkers.
But Sansa's on board too. She's kind of like
she's in a weird place right now. She's got issues. I don't know.
I'm just in a weird place right now.
She kind of has frustrated me.
I just can't.
I understand that they're trying to give some significance to sort of her role in the story, but I really do feel like her. I feel like they're kind of manipulating that a little bit because I don't see her going to where they're pushing her, which they're pushing her in this almost like maybe she's going to portray Jon sort of a thing, but I don't see her ever doing that. And I really don't I feel like the role that she should have taken was more of a strength, power person to be sort of like a voice of reason to Jon and to be like her mother was for him. Yeah. Not for him, but for Rob. Yeah. You know what I mean? That he would respect her and listen to her, but she's kind of taken on this whiny of like, well, I want to be in charge sort of a thing. But I don't see her as somebody that should be in charge because not at this point, at least, she's never had any military experience. She's pretty much just been thrust into, at this point, war. But she's never had any experience on a battlefield, really, except for bringing in troops. So
the real twist would be when she turns into the Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
And obliterates everybody.
That would be a twist and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe 3/4, I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to add to that? B+?
Nope,
Cool.
I think that's it.
So that brings us to another show that I had not yet had a chance to see. But Joel, you kind of mentioned earlier that you kind of dig this show a little bit. So I want to hear more about Riverdale.
So I just started watching it. It took on a different vibe than I really thought it was going to take on. And I think a lot of that was to do with one that's the CW, but recently the CW has done a much better job with presenting much better cinematography and much better stylized type shows. A lot of their shows in the past, prior to some of their most recent shows, kind of to me always felt a little bit cheesy, almost melodramatic, tongue-in-cheek, but then they improved their cinematography and their style. And I think this is a step forward as well for them, visually and story-wise as well. And so this is the first season. It's already aired on
The
CW,
C-dubs.
the C-dubs. It's getting actually some pretty good ratings from most of the reviewers. It's got a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes at 89%, 84% of reviewers like it. And I think one of the things that I'm liking so much about the very first episode, which is as far as I've made it so far, is they really did a good job of like being self-aware of where this comes from, because it comes from a series of characters that was in the Archie comics, which I've never read, but they're based upon the characters in the Archie comics. It's done a good enough job of being self-aware with that, but not standing on that too much.
Right.
It's not trying to like have its cake and eat it too. It's very strongly telling a specific story about these characters, going in a very specific, strong emotional direction. And it's not trying to be like, oh, well, because you know this of Archie comics, we're going to do this, you know? And I like that. So I don't feel like I need to have known a bunch of stuff from the Archie comics. And it's a real story. It's an honest story in a way so far. It feels like everything that progresses and has been happening kind of makes sense. People aren't at the most, I would say for the most part, they're not extremely like this or extreme. They're not like caricatures of a thing. For the most part, they all feel pretty realistic portrayals of people that would have these types of natures to their character. So, you know, you've got Archie, who's kind of like this main guy that's a bit conflicted because he kind of knows what he wants to do, which is to write music, but he has this stuff thrust upon him because of his father. But he's also got a couple girls that are showing interest in him, namely a teacher, which is just like, what? Like the whole thing there. But that's handled, again, pretty realistically, I would imagine, for a situation like that to play out. And I think all the extra characters all have their own like very strong characterization and quirks to them without going to a caricature.
Right.
You know,
right.
they have very strong characters to them. So
that makes
it's
sense.
interesting. The first episode, they did a really good job of presenting good story elements, things that are of interest that would bring you in just for that first episode, but also really obvious things that are going to like play over the course of this season and maybe over the course of the entire, you know, each character feel like it has its own kind of mini story arc that they're going on. And then the season seems like it's going to have its own sort of story arc going on. And then individual episodes had their own thing. So you got, Archie, you've got this girl named Betty Cooper, who's kind of like his longtime crush. Well, she has a crush on him, but he's not necessarily in the same boat. You've got Jughead, who's kind of like this guy that's writing notes and keeping track of everybody. You've got the Josie and the Pussycats gang, which was kind of like this fun reimagining interpretation of that band. So Veronica Lodge, it's a girl that's she's a former socialite that kind of comes in and does some damage, but she's like good and bad at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing a very good job explaining
No,
it.
I think you're doing all right. And I think the biggest thing for me, and I like that you like it because it is a CW show, and I feel like they have a very, they have kind of a niche thing that they do.
Yeah.
And I think that the more that they can do stuff that's out of their like CW stereotype, I think is better.
Yeah, it's self-aware.
For the best.
Agreed. I think the fun thing about the show is it's self-aware. It's not taking itself too seriously, and it's not being melodramatic. It's set in a small town, and it's kind of like, you know, the inner workings of the relationships between the people and the difficulties that they're going with, but it's not overly ridiculous. Yeah, there is a murder. That's kind of like the opening of the first episode. There's like a murder, and that's obviously going to be playing out at least over the course of the first season, kind of figuring out, okay, how did this guy get murdered? Why did this guy get murdered? I guess we kind of know how at this point, but more so, why did this guy get murdered? And what that does to the different characters and stuff. So
there's been a murder on the savannah.
Right. There's been a four-way standoff here. Yeah. So I thought it was good. I'm enjoying it. It's a bit of a mystery. I think that's what I'm liking about it.
Cool.
I wasn't expecting the mystery elements. I was expecting just a flat, silly, cheesy, tongue-in-cheek kind of teen drama thing. But the mystery element has intrigued me.
Well, rate the pilot for us.
So first episode, I would actually give this one a B+ as well.
Hey-o.
So I'd give it an 88.
Cool, man. So you think Riverdale's going to be the new Game of Thrones?
No.
I'm kidding.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with the wrapping up of Game of Thrones. I'm sure they've got some stuff in the work where they're trying to create some sort of fantasy style magic show.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's happened. HBO's got stuff going on. So,
Yep.
yeah. Anyways, so anything else you want to add to that?
Nope. That's
Cool.
it.
Well, that's going to wrap up our Tube Talk segment and thus this podcast segment
So
as a whole.
long.
I know it's a long one, but a lot of stuff we covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a reminder, you can reach us at Real Review Media. That's at our Twitter and Instagram. Also, Facebook.com/Real Review Media, and then also RealReviewMedia.com is our website. Send us an email. Let us know what you thought about those shows or the films in general that we've seen, whether it be Apes
Do it.
or the previous other prequels to that film as well. So let us know, and that's at realreviewmedia@gmail.com. And anything else you want to add, Joel?
I think I'm good.
Cool, man. Well, it's been real.
It's been real.